you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me one quick favor, see that little black subscribe button on the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Really does help this channel grow, my audience grow, and I appreciate it more than you know. Also, quick thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet $50 on any game. Get up to $1,111 in free bets courtesy of the Betfred Sportsbook. Thank you again. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Switch gears, and I do want to revisit the biggest story of the weekend in college football and, frankly, all of sports, and that was what happened on Saturday afternoon in Fort Worth when Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, in his debut at Colorado, took care of business against TCU. Now, we're not going to revisit that game. We already talked about it on Tuesday's show. If you missed it, go back and download it. But I want to start to look ahead, and not quite so far ahead that we're going to talk about the Nebraska game this coming weekend. We'll do the preview on Friday. But instead, I just kind of want to do a big picture conversation about Colorado, because following the win on Saturday, I had a bunch of you guys reach out to me, guys and girls reach out to me, DM, email, whatever. And a lot of you asked me, Torres, I'm blown away. I cannot believe what I just saw. What is the ceiling for this team this year? And so I want to take a minute. I want to discuss that. And I want to start by saying this, is that I think for all of us, even the believers in Coach Prime, the believers in Colorado, I don't think there's any debate that the ceiling is higher than we all thought it was. I was a guy that I didn't think, I thought they were going over the 3.5 wins. Was that 4? Was it 5? Was it bowl eligibility in a best case scenario? Absolutely. But now, after seeing it all in person, I think the ceiling might even be a little bit higher. Not saying 12-0, not saying a Pac-12 championship, but I do think it is higher for a few different reasons. The first one, and I was thinking about this, Pac-12 is really, really good this year. But I think you can legitimately argue that based on what we saw, I don't think there is a single game that Colorado will play outside of USC where they'll face Caleb Williams, where they will not have the best quarterback on the field. Shedeur Sanders was unbelievable. And listen, Travis Hunter was dynamic, the star, whatever. But my personal biggest takeaway was I was a Shedeur guy, and I was even blown away by how good Shedeur Sanders was on Saturday against TCU. This was a guy coming in. I have hyped him. We knew he was good, or I knew he was good, because he was offered by Bama out of high school, offered by Georgia out of high school. And oh, by the way, was incredible at Jackson State last year. 70% completion percentage, 40 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I've said it on every podcast, everything that I've done here over the last couple days. When you throw for 40 touchdowns on 70% completion at any level, you're a baller. But I think even with that as a background, I was even more impressed with Shedeur than I expected to be coming out of that game. Bottom line was FBS, FCS, and I know he talked about it a lot after the game. He just looked like a poised, confident quarterback who had been there before. And so, yes, Colorado has concerns, especially on the offensive line, but he's smart. He gets rid of the ball quickly. He reads defenses really well. And he just, I don't think he's going to beat himself or beat Colorado at any point. And so we all watch football at all levels. Name me a time where if you don't have the best quarterback on the field and a real talent at that, you don't have a chance. That's exactly what Shedeur brings to this team. And I'll say this is listen, I try to play to my strengths and weaknesses on this show. I am far from an NFL draft expert, but I saw a lot of people who are say all of a sudden, we didn't know what to make of Shedeur playing at the FCS level, whatever. Well, I'll tell you what, there are people that are already saying now, like, that kid could be a first-round pick and probably will be a first-round pick and certainly will be a first-round pick if he continues to play like that. Now, you got to keep it up for 11 games, but what we saw from him was absolutely unbelievable. And if you have a first-rounder, if you have the better quarterback in just about every game you play, and we'll see, because Bo Nix is really good, there's a couple other guys that are really good, I think you got a chance. So 1, it's Shedeur. 2, I think it's also worth noting, the skill position guys are awesome. And this is one thing. I think I undersold Shedeur a little bit. I'll give myself credit on the skill position guys, because if you listen to this show all winter long, all spring long, all summer long, every time I talked about Colorado after the roster came together, what did I say? I said, outside of USC, I think they're going to have the best skill position guys in the Pac-12. Well, what happened on Saturday? We saw it in person. We know the stats, 4 different wide receivers going over 100 yards, but these guys are freaking dynamic. Xavier Weaver, 6 catches, 118 yards. Jimmy Horn, 11 catches, 117 yards. Travis Hunter, we all know about him, 11 catches, 119 yards. Dylan Edwards, that dynamic, fast, speedy wide receiver, running back, wide receiver hybrid, true freshman, flipped from Notre Dame. 5 catches, 135 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. And so again, you get elite quarterback play, and you got skill position guys that are difference makers. You can play with anybody. I just talked about it with Clemson. I think part of Clemson's problem, they don't have dudes that can break one tackle and then go 90 yards to the house. Colorado's got 3 or 4 of them. Dylan Edwards against a pretty good TCU defense just outran them 2, 3, 4 times. The other wide receivers, Travis Hunter outran his guy, and just there's a couple times one of the ball just fell between his arms on that deep touch, what would have been a touchdown pass. And so you got the quarterback, you got the wide receivers. This to me is the blueprint. I get that Colorado isn't perfect. I get that the defense isn't elite. Gave up a lot of points in the sun, the heat, the temperature in Fort Worth on Saturday. Offensive line isn't elite. But it's not as though we haven't seen teams have success if your quarterback's good enough, if your skill guys are good enough, and if you put up enough points. Look at USC. People picked USC to win the Pac-12. People picked USC to make the playoff. Why? Because they got a great quarterback that can put up a lot of points, and they almost did it last year. They were 1 game away. Remember, they went to the Pac-12 championship game, and if they won, they were in the 14 college football playoff. This year, people think it's the same. The defense doesn't look much better, but you trust Caleb Williams, you trust Lincoln Riley. By the way, Lincoln Riley, never forget, has done this before. The year he had Kyler Murray, they were awful on defense. They were awful, and they made the college football playoff because Kyler Murray played like the #1 overall pick in the draft. The year before with Baker Mayfield, defense wasn't that good. Didn't matter. Baker Mayfield elevated them. Lincoln Riley's done it with the elite quarterback play, and there's no reason that Colorado can't win a lot of games because of Shedeur and the skill position guys. Which brings me to, let's just look at the schedule. Tell me where they are going to be severely undermanned. There may be a game or 2, but there aren't many. You start with this weekend at Nebraska. We all watched Nebraska last weekend, and I know it's easy to say there's going to be a letdown, and maybe there will be. But at the same time, they're at home, great crowd. Nebraska's offense isn't very good. Nebraska's offense was basically all Jeff Sims running the football. You limit that a little bit. He's not a good passer. He's never been a good passer. Nebraska last week, under 300 yards of total offense, 114 yards of passing, 10 points in the entire game. And the touchdown came on a dropped ball that got thrown for a score. A dropped lateral to Jeff Sims, to be clear, to go for a score. So my whole point is, even if Colorado's defense isn't elite, even if the offense doesn't play quite as well as last week, I mean, I think 28 points probably wins that game. 35 points certainly wins that game. And so you can't do that against Nebraska. I think you can if you put up 50 whatever, or 48 against 45 against TCU. Keep it going. You look at the rest of the schedule. Oregon is after that. I will say Oregon is the one team, one of 2 or 3, I do think will give Colorado problems because they're physical enough along the line of scrimmage, but they're so dynamic offensively. 81 points in their opener. Oregon looked awesome. We're going to learn a lot more about them against Texas Tech this weekend. But Oregon's one of 2 or 3 that I have circled that I think are going to be a real challenge for Colorado. But beyond that, USC comes to Boulder the following weekend. Respectful to USC. You think Shedeur Sanders can't go score for score with Caleb Williams the way USC's defense is playing? Not saying they'll win. I don't think it's inconceivable, though. Home game. It's going to be in some big window, either big noon kickoff or at night, whatever. Crowd's going to be rocking. Ticket sales are going to be through the roof if it isn't sold out already. Road game for Caleb Williams. And again, Shedeur can't go score for score with Caleb Williams on that awful USC defense. Let's keep it going. Arizona State's the next game. That should be a win. Stanford's the next game. That should definitely be a win. And I like Stanford. I think they're much improved under the first-year coach, Troy Taylor. They don't got dudes like Colorado's got. You keep it going. Late October after the bye at UCLA. Listen, I live in Pasadena. I live not far from the Rose Bowl. Rose Bowl ain't going to be packed. And if it is, it's going to be with a lot of Colorado fans wearing the Coach Prime gear that we sell at AaronTorresOnline.com. UCLA's not, it's going to be basically a neutral field. Going to be a lot of Colorado fans. And UCLA by then could be playing a true freshman at quarterback in Dante Moore. Got a lot of reps last weekend. We'll see if it happens again. But true freshman in a not hostile environment, you mean to tell me Colorado can't win that game? Following week, Oregon State at home. Oregon's big and physical. I still don't trust DJ Uiagalelei, the quarterback there. He was very good on Sunday against San Jose State. Oregon State should be able to control the line of scrimmage. They should be able to run the ball. But again, I don't think their offense is that dynamic. And can Colorado's put up 28, 31 points? Maybe. Washington State or Arizona the following week. Arizona really good on offense, really bad on defense. That sounds like Colorado. Washington State on the road and then at Utah. And look, I think Utah is going to be a challenge, right? By then, Cam Rising is going to be back. By then, Cam Rising is going to be 100%. But I just think you look at the schedule. I mean, listen, I'll say this. I think there are two really, really tough games for Colorado. Utah, and at Oregon. So at Utah and at Oregon. Those teams are big. Those teams are physical. Those teams are mean. Those teams are nasty. Oregon State's probably the same, but at least you get them at home later in the year. We'll see what the weather's like in that situation, although Oregon State is good at home. But I'm telling you, you look at some of these teams, and I like UCLA. I think UCLA is better than people give them credit for, but you can't beat UCLA. If things break right, you can't compete with USC. I'm telling you, man, it's just so interesting because the narrative has changed so much on this team just in the last couple days. You look at this Colorado team. I said the ceiling was a bowl game. I think they're going to a bowl game. It's just a matter of how much better than 6-6 they are.